The views and opinions expressed on any program are those of the producers and/or the persons appearing on the program and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of FRCMedia, Bristol Community College, or the City of Fall River.
This week on FRCmedia News, we sit down for an extensive interview with Congressman Jake Auchincloss. Homeless support and awareness is the focus of the Get Steppin' 5K Walk. And local businesses are getting free money from National Grid. All this and more coming up. It's Thursday, August 10th, 2023. This is FRCmedia News. I'm Keith Tebow. Congress is on summer recess and members are spending time back in their districts. Massachusetts 4th District Congressman Jake Auchincloss, who represents Fall River, was in the city this week and spent some time in our FRCmedia studio for an exclusive interview. Here are excerpts of our conversation. Last time we spoke, it was early in the year. You had just been inaugurated to your second term. Your first term was the Democrats had the majority. Now the Republicans have the majority. What's been different, and how's the first 6+ months been in your second term?
My first term was unique. It started with an insurrection in the middle of a pandemic, and then we packed a decade's worth of legislating into 2 years. Infrastructure investments, manufacturing investments, monumental healthcare and climate legislation, gun safety legislation, Electoral Count Act reform, support for Ukraine. It was truly the most productive Congress since the 1960s by some measures. This Congress is different. There's no doubt about it. The Republicans are in control of the House of Representatives. I'm in the minority. And the GOP has had a fork in the road when they took the gavel. Speaker Kevin McCarthy could have continued on the bipartisan momentum from last Congress, where, as I said, we made big, bold strokes for an economy that works for everybody. And we've already seen the fruits of that with rising real wages and with infrastructure investments starting to hit towns and cities across Massachusetts and the country. Unfortunately, the Republicans have stood at that fork in the road, and they have not chosen the bipartisan path. They are instead passing legislation that is really turning the clock back. They're adding anti-abortion amendments to almost every piece of legislation that hits the floor. They're cutting funding for food security programs, for veterans' healthcare services, for diplomacy and basic research funding, things that I just don't think are good for the country, and I'm not going to support.
Has there been, I know you mentioned this earlier, and you've mentioned this in the past, that in the previous 2 years, there was bipartisan support, infrastructure bill you mentioned. Has there been any of that at all? Or is there a possibility that there's bipartisan support on some bills?
Our viewers may recall that in the early spring, the President and Speaker McCarthy struck a deal to raise the debt limit and avert a catastrophic default that would have tipped this economy into recession, would have plunged a lot of Americans' retirement accounts. They averted that in exchange for some relatively modest spending cuts that would have saved hundreds of billions of dollars over the next 10 years. In the grand tradition of compromises, neither party much liked it, but we came together and voted for it. I was one of the members who voted for that deal because it was the responsible path of governance. Within hours, and I mean hours, Keith, the House GOP reneged on that deal and have since marked up spending bills that don't comport with the parameters of the agreement. And as I said, are doing huge gashes in basic services like healthcare for veterans and kids that are not acceptable to me. They're not acceptable for the president. They're not going to be acceptable for the American public. And so we are at this moment of brinksmanship where Kevin McCarthy is going to have to decide, do I want to appease Marjorie Taylor Greene, or do I want to try to govern with Democrats in a responsible fashion?
Is there a chance, because when you go back in September, you only have about a month to have a budget put in place for fiscal year 24, is there a possibility that the government could shut down?
Yes, which I find totally unacceptable. We need, and American taxpayers expect, government to be able to provide basic services, and it's totally preventable. We signed a deal to avert this back in the spring. We had an agreement. As I said, Parts of both parties didn't much like the agreement. It was a compromise, but House Democrats, Senate Democrats, the president, heck, even Senate Republicans are all sticking to the deal. It's just House Republicans who have backtracked from it. And unless they are willing to honor the agreement that Kevin McCarthy shook hands on, a government shutdown is possible. I will certainly work my hardest to avert that, because people are already spending too long trying to get IRS tax refunds. They're spending too long trying to get passports for travel. They're spending too long to get Social Security checks that have been mislaid. None of that is acceptable. Government shutdown would make it worse, and I'm going to work to prevent it.
You know, one thing that appears to be different as well is Congress' role in oversight. During the Democrats' run, there were investigations that were held. Obviously, it started with the second impeachment of former President Trump. How are Republicans handling that oversight? It seems to be a lot more one-sided. Hunter Biden, of course, comes up. How is that different, and how does that impede the progress of the House?
In a word, it's whataboutism.
Right.
So, as all of our viewers will know, Donald Trump has been indicted now for the third time. I expect there will be a fourth. This indictment is the most serious indictment in American history, because the individual who was charged to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States, excuse me, Constitution I swore to protect as a Marine officer, Constitution I swore to protect as a member of Congress. The Commander-in-Chief assaulted the Constitution. It was a conspiracy against our founding charter to overturn the election results. He did so knowingly and deliberately. There's overwhelming evidence and first-person testimony to support that. And the Republicans know that at the end of the day. They know they don't have much of a defense. So instead of trying to defend it, they are instead trying to deflect from it. And they do that by saying, well, what about Hunter Biden? And as I have said clearly and repeatedly, if Hunter Biden made mistakes or broke the law, Hunter Biden should be held accountable. Nobody is saying otherwise. The Justice Department has not been partial or subjective. They will extract accountability as necessary. But there's absolutely no evidence of material involvement from Joe Biden, and the entire thing is just finger pointing to deflect from the monstrosity of the crimes by Donald Trump.
I want to get into some local issues here in Fall River. I know in the past that in previous budget appropriations, you've allocated funds. I believe, members of Congress can ask for money for local investments. And as I look ahead into 24, looks like you put in a couple of those investments in for Fall River. Pleasant Street stabilization plan, which is important here in our Flint neighborhood, and also the Ferry Street sewer pump rehab. Talk about how those will help, and are you hopeful that they'll be successful when the budget is finally approved? It's
about infrastructure and economic development. And for these projects, I work very closely with Senator Rodericks, with Representatives Viola and Sylvia, and of course with Mayor Coogan and his administration. And we literally huddle up, federal, state, local, and say, where are the pots of money? Where can we get the most ROI for Fall River's economic development, for public safety, for infrastructure? And we come up with a game plan every year. It's been a very fruitful partnership for these 3 years I've been in office. I certainly am committed to continuing it. And these projects are what have surfaced from that collaboration. And they're going to unlock economic development for the city of Fall River, and they're also going to help with what I know has been a long-going liability for the city, which is water costs. Water and sewer has been a big issue here in Fall River. Yeah. You were here back in, I believe it was March, for a town hall at Government Center. How do you view those, and how helpful are they to you to help hear directly from the voters who vote you in, and those who may not have voted for you? Right. I mean, constituent conversations are like oxygen for me. I need them. And we use a kaleidoscope of methods to find out what people are thinking. No one method is inviolable, right? I have telephone town halls, I have in-person town halls, we do Zoom roundtables, we do coffees with your congressman during the day. I do mailers where people can fill in surveys. We have an email program. We go on social media. So I want to hear all of it. And I can piece all of that incoming together and try to create a picture of the district. And that helps build my intuition for issues that I face. Because I'll vote on 40, 50 things a week, right? I can't go out there and poll the district in every single one. I have to develop an ability to create a composite of where I think the district's values and priorities are at. The in-person town halls are absolutely critical for that, and I'm always pushing my team to do more and more. We'll certainly be back in Fall River, and it was well attended and a vigorous one. A couple things continually come up. One is mental health and the importance for federal, state, and private sector work on expanding mental health services, both inpatient and outpatient, as well as training and support for mental health professionals. We are seeing really a tidal wave of need there, particularly for children, and government needs to help. Also drug prices. One of the things we did last Congress that I'm particularly proud of is lower drug prices for Medicare beneficiaries. Probably helped somewhere between 40 to 50,000 constituents in my district alone here in the Massachusetts 4th. There's a lot more we can do though. People who don't have the very, very high out-of-pocket costs that were benefited last term, there's still people who need help. And we have to go after the corporate greed of the drug pricing middlemen that are owned by the insurance companies, who have been raking in huge profits and not passing them on to patients who are taking insulin, patients who need drugs for cancer or for other chronic diseases.
You know, in a city like Fall River, blue collar, low educational attainment, a lot has been made over the past year plus about inflation, the impact of inflation, housing costs, of course, rents continue to skyrocket. I believe at the town hall you mentioned that that's sometimes more of a state and local issue, but is there anything that can be done on the federal level in terms of providing some relief?
Yes, it's highly complementary, as I said, to state and local issues. Localities have to get their zoning codes right to allow for more multifamily housing and mixed-use development. The state, under Governor Healy, is setting up a fund to help with both low-income and moderate-income housing development. At the federal level, the most important policy lever we have is the Low-Income Housing Tax Credit, LIHTC program. Very successful, long-standing program. I voted to expand it. That did not pass the Senate, unfortunately, but I continue to be a strong proponent of expanding LIHTC because what it does is it works with private sector developers to induce more affordable housing construction. At the end of the day, what we need is to build more affordable housing.
About a year
and
ago,
market rate housing, to be clear.
Sure. How important will it be? Obviously, there's reconstruction of Route 79, South Coast Rail. We've talked about this for so many years.
Yes.
Finally going to be here at the end of the year. Will that make a difference in terms of people coming in, maybe more disposable income being spent in Fall River, increasing tax revenue here? Is that all part of it?
Certainly, I think the confluence of South Coast Rail, the waterfront redevelopment project, and burgeoning offshore wind industry. These three things, I think, create some tailwinds for economic development for Fall River, for a more vibrant downtown, and as you said, for more purchasing power within the city confines.
President Biden earlier this year announced his intention to run for re-election next year. Polling shows that he and former President Trump, New York Times last week, they're pretty much neck and neck, despite the troubles that the former president is facing. I know you're a staunch supporter of the president. A lot has been mentioned over the past year that we expected to be in a recession by now because of the high inflation. That has not transpired. How strong is your support for the president, and how do you feel in terms of what he's done economically will be a benefit to him next year?
I strongly support President Biden. He's had a successful first term, and elections are choices. The choice is going to be a stark one. The choice is going to be between a president who inherited a country reeling from a pandemic, facing the most complicated economic situation since the end of World War II, and under attack from within on the very tenets of its democracy. And since then, he has helped heal our democracy. We've passed important reforms. We have stood up to autocrats in China and Russia globally. He has put the pandemic in the rearview mirror. And of course, we've had a rip-roaring recovery with no recession, despite being the most predicted recession of all time. The most important number to watch, the number I care the most about, is real wage growth. That is nominal wage increases minus inflation. That tells me, do people at the end of the day, when they take home pay, they pay their taxes, and they face what the price of groceries and gas is, do they have more purchasing power? And starting last month, real wages have been going up. That is a tremendous predictor of a broad-based and inclusive economic recovery.
Do you think that will continue into 2024? I mean, difficult to...
Yeah, having just criticized the entire economic industry for mispredicting this recession, I'm going to be humble myself. What I will say is that last Congress and this administration together, we have tried to set the conditions for it to continue. We have made investments in manufacturing. We have made investments in infrastructure. We have tried to control healthcare costs and pass on those savings to Medicare beneficiaries. We are propelling forward the clean energy transition. So we have tried to set the conditions for this to be an economy that works for everyone and that, as the president says, is built from the bottom up and the middle out, not just working for the select few.
You can catch our full interview with Congressman Auchincloss on FRC Media Channel 95 or online on our website, frmedia.org. Massachusetts Governor Maura Healey this week signed into law the FY 2024 state budget totaling $56 billion.
We've delivered a budget that truly meets the moment in so many ways, delivering historic investments in schools and childcare, extending our lead in clean energy and protecting the environment, expanding access to mental and physical health care, and so much more. This budget makes our state more affordable, competitive, and equitable. It will make a real and meaningful difference in the lives of people across Massachusetts, lowering their costs, expanding access to opportunity, improving the quality of their life. It's a product of shared values and deep collaborative partnership across our administration, represented here today, and importantly, with our partners in the legislature.
The spending plan adds money for local aid to cities and towns and more money and free lunches for public schools. It also launches Mass Reconnect, where students 25 or older without a degree can receive a free education at Bristol Community College or the other community colleges across the Commonwealth. The services of Stepping Stone Inc.'s First Step In homeless shelter remain vital for individuals who don't have a reliable place to live. Director of Homeless Services Rosa Medeiros says the shelter has increased its capacity to 30 beds year-round and 50 beds during the winter season. The organization's connection with the homeless population tends to wane during the warmer months.
A lot of individuals that struggle a lot with mental health or even like being in large groups, they'll come in for the winter, but they may leave for the summer because they have that little freedom of not having to deal with those mental health symptoms of, anxiety, being near others. So we lose a few of them during the winter when we hope to get all of them in and address a lot of the things that can help them succeed, get them housed, connect with mental health therapy or substance use disorders. So that's always an opportunity for us, the winter, because they come in to be safe. During the summer, some of those individuals go back out. And so we have a lot more street homeless during the summer than we do during the winter.
Ms. Medeiros says along with behavioral factors, economics also play a role in those who are homeless.
They're there for a lot of reasons: poverty, rental expenses, what it costs to rent an apartment, all of those things, and all the other barriers that people struggle with. And COVID really had an impact on people. I think it left a lot of people wondering about safety. Our goal is to house individuals and not to have them come in, stay for a short period, then give someone else an opportunity to come in. Our shelter services are really meant to, get the individual back to the life they deserve.
The organization is sponsoring its annual Get Steppin' 5K walk this weekend with the goal of raising more than $100,000 for the First Step In homeless shelter.
The walk is August 12th, and it starts right here at the First Step In at 134 Durfee Street. And registration is from 8 to 9, and then we start walking at 9. The walk itself is a beautiful walk. We go right down the street to Heritage. We go walk through Heritage Park, right by the water. It's a beautiful walk. We come back, and then we celebrate with pizza and just raffle prizes. I love Fall River because of, it's got a different spirit. It's got a spirit of community. The service providers in this community get the job done. You know, if there's a need or a gap in services for any person or family, like our United Way, Health First, Star, all of these organizations, they get the job done if they see something that's needed. And I've always envisioned all of these beautiful community agencies like represented there, because they're the ones that do it. And then, you know, the people of Fall River come to join and help out the homeless.
Along with raising funds for the First Step In, the walk also brings increased awareness to the problem of homeless in Fall River and removes the stigma that comes along with it.
I can remember a time when no one really wanted to talk about it, and now there's a lot more, let's get this solved, let's work together and come together as a community. How can we help? Sometimes, even on social media, I'll see people, like, if somebody says a negative comment, I used to like hold back because I didn't want to get myself involved and then just do it in the right venue. But I used to cringe sometimes at the things that were said, and now I don't have to even say anything. Someone's always responding. You don't know that person's story. You know, you don't know what they've been through, and it really, and I think that's all. You know, that for us to just look at human beings as human beings and say everybody deserves a home, everybody deserves an opportunity to have good quality of life, everybody deserves that.
Over 90% of the funds raised during the walk will go towards services at the First Step In. The registration is available online at steppingstoneinc.org, and walk-ups are welcomed. We'll have more FRC Media News right after this.
Here are some job descriptions on the latest hot jobs list from the Mass Hire Fall River Career Center. Presser, Matuk Textile Works Incorporated, located at 925 Airport Road, is looking for a full-time presser, responsible for basic operations of a pressing station, utilizing pressing to a hand iron, steam press, and properly finishing bed and table linens. Job number 194-48432. Certified Dental Assistant, Dentistry with a Smile, located at 920 Plymouth Avenue, is seeking a full-time certified dental assistant, responsible for dental exam tables, assist during cleanings and fillings, and administrative duties. Job number 194-60354. Production Supervisor, Blanc Fine Foods, located at 63 Current Road, is looking for a full-time production supervisor, responsible for managing and supervising the production team and daily processes. Job number 194-55819. Center Coordinator, Children Making Strides, located at 421 Current Road, is looking for a full-time center coordinator. For more information, call 508-563-5767. Stop and Shop, located at 333 Mariano Bishop Boulevard, has an immediate need for the following full and part-time positions. Grocery Clerk, job number 194-56075. Store Administrator, job number 194-55983. For more information about these or other positions, visit Mass Hire JobQuest at jobquest.dcs.eol.mass.gov or call the Mass Hire Fall River Career Center at 508-730-5000.
National Grid is partnering with the One South Coast Chamber of Commerce, offering $1,000 grants to local small businesses within its service area.
National Grid's been a member of the Chamber for a very long time, and they came to us and basically said the challenges that they're having, you know, people are extremely upset with rates going up, and it's just it's a difficult energy environment. And they wanted to do something. They wanted to do something good for the small businesses, and they had this program. And we're one of 10 chambers throughout the state of Massachusetts that they're working with, and it's turned out to just be a fantastic program.
We realize, you know, in these times, the increase in costs, that especially the small businesses are really finding it hard to get ahead. So we want to do something to try to help them and contribute to their costs. I do see it happening more, and maybe targeting different types of businesses as well, for the, you know, a different type of direction and try to get more businesses out there.
A total of $100,000 in grants will be dispersed to 100 local businesses that are powered by National Grid. Among those picking up a check last week was social service organization Share Jobs for Progress.
We get a weekly newsletter, and I saw it pop up in the newsletter. Initially, it almost seemed too good to be true, but it was a very easy process. And as you said yourself, times are tough, everything's more expensive, so every little bit helps. So we're really grateful for this extra $1,000. It'll certainly help defray some of our costs. We're a small nonprofit, and every little bit helps.
Mr. O'Sullivan says there are still grants available to be claimed with a low barrier to apply.
There's absolutely no catch to this. If just be a chamber member, provide us your W-9, provide us your most recent invoice, apply online, and that's it. There's no grant report you have to do. The money's not encumbered that it can only be used for certain parts of your business. It's one of the best grants that I've ever seen. It's got very simple application process and no reporting process. It's really National Grid recognizing the importance of small business to their business and to the people in the community, and they're giving back, which is, there's a lot to be said for that.
National Grid small business customers can apply at the Chamber's website, onesouthcoast.com. We will wrap up this edition of FRC Media News after this.
Hi, welcome to Hot Dogs and Cool Cats. Today with us we have Zilla. She is a 12-week-old lab mix. She came from Puerto Rico with 8 other puppies. Sadly, she is the last one. She is super, super sweet. Because she is 12 weeks, she's a lot of training, even like the basics. Very treat motivated as well, very happy. She is just a puppy, so she does get along with other dogs. She gets along with cats. She can be housed with children. She's only 12 weeks and she's already 25 pounds. We can never guess about how big they will be, but just judging on her paws and that she's only 12 weeks and already 25 pounds, I have a feeling she's gonna be a very big girl. She does love to run, she loves to play. There's a lot of energy to be burned out. But if you do want to come meet her, you can give Forever Paws a call. So come down and meet Zilla. I know she'll love to meet you.
Today we have Marbles. Marbles is a 2-year-old domestic short-haired male. He's a little out of it today. He just got neutered. Marbles is a very sweet kitty. He loves attention. He would do good in just about any home. Kids with him would be fine. He's a very laid-back kind of guy. Marbles was found as a stray. We, held him for a few days to see if somebody would come forward for him. Nobody came forward, so he is available for adoption. So if you'd like to meet Marbles, give us a call at Forever Paws Animal Shelter, 300 Linwood Street. The number is 508-677-9154. Come down and meet Marbles. He would love to meet you.
That'll do it for this edition of FRC Media News. We invite you to visit our website at frmedia.org for all the latest news and local information. FRC Media News airs Thursdays at 6 p.m. and Fridays at 5:30 p.m. For all of us here at FRC Media News, I'm Keith Tebow. Have a great weekend. We'll talk to you next Thursday.